This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. All right, guys, as you know, we've been talking to several guys that have already been a part of the Dominion program or are currently going through the Dominion program. And so we have a representative of Team 2, Dominion Team 2, so that's Mitch Renda. So, Mitch, thank you for coming on the show. And just as a way of introduction, we need to know where are you located, what do you do for a living, how old are you? Let's just start with the basic stuff.
Located in Cincinnati, Ohio, commercial real estate development and redevelopment, and I'm 30 years old.
Okay, so now from Ohio, and so people are automatically thinking like, oh, did you go to the Ohio State? And why do they put a capital, all capped, the in front of Ohio State? Can you set the record straight for us?
Arrogant, cocky, other words I won't use. I'm a Penn State guy, and we don't have to go down that route, Kyle. We've done it before, but I am as anti-Ohio State as one can get. I just so happen to live in the same state as many of these folks.
Well, we're either going to get people excited about you or they're going to be really, really mad at you. So when you compare Big Ten football or BIG football or whatever that stupid logo is, where it's like a 10, but it's a G, so big football and SEC football. All right, so I'm from Big 12 country, but the Big 12 technically doesn't exist anymore or, whatever. Sorry, shots fired. But, what do you think? I mean, if you were being honest, gun to your head, better players, better overall gameplay, better school.
Well,
what are you going with?
Let's not get emotional about it, and let's stick with statistics and like facts and history. And
Okay.
in most recent history, we had a national champion 2 years ago, right? And then we had a national champion this year. What conference?
What about like the previous 20 years? I'm having trouble remembering.
Hold on. Are you asking about now or are you asking about history? Like where are we at?
Hey, 3 years ago is still now. And if football were a woman, they remember everything for all time. Okay. And so let's start counting up the champions for forever. So I don't know where that would end up, but we're not here to talk about football.
All I'll say is though,
last word,
the whiteout is better than Georgia's environment. Tell Joby that, and I'll tell him that too.
The whiteout. Oh, shots fired directly at Joby. He's not even trying to. Hey.
I had to do it. He thinks SEC is end all be all. I just got to say, there's more to the world.
Well, Mitch, I just got to tell you, he's been to a lot of SEC football games. Like I've been to a couple of Big 12 games. I've never experienced a Big 10 game. So I think the way that we fix this is the next whiteout or where there's like a big game that Penn State's going to lose because anytime they play someone in the top 5, that's what happens. But like when there's a big game like that happens, just invite Joby and I up there, fly us on your private jet or whatever you got because everyone in Ohio apparently has one of those, and then just zip us on up there and then we can experience it for ourselves. What do you say?
Noted.
All right, noted. He's written it down, guys, but we got to get to some business today. But obviously, you and I have known each other for a while now. But I just want to, first of all, get an idea. How did you find Undaunted Life? Why in the world do you still consume Undaunted Life content? Kind of how did all that start?
I started searching diligently for biblically rooted content for men a while ago. This is probably like pre-COVID or COVID time, something like that. And you popped up. I don't really remember how you popped up, but you popped up. And you are a fierce and vicious redhead. And I love that about you, Kyle. And you're not afraid to say it how it is. And that's truly what I was looking for, someone who's not afraid to say it how it is, to say the truth and to stand firm on the truth. And so I found that in Undaunted Life, and I've just been listening and following ever since then. Yeah,
it's so interesting and fun for me. The people that reach out, it's everything from like 14, 15-year-old boys that, started listening to this. It's like they're one of their first podcasts to guys in their 70s and 80s that are like, hey, I've never heard anyone talk this way. And so it's weird kind of being in the middle of all those different generations. But now in terms of the Dominion program, so you were one of the people that signed up or put in an application whenever we announced it publicly because Team 1 was private. We were just kind of doing it almost like a beta. Is this really going to work? Are guys really going to be into this? And it just went so spectacularly. We're like, okay, we got to roll this out. But it was still kind of a smaller rollout, right? So I talked about it on the show where you were immediately flooded with applications, but there's not like a huge staff of people here that were handling the application. So it was just me. So here I am like on my Google Docs, like, looking at the different people that put in their applications and reading them and trying to find time. And if I remember correctly, I was in Jacksonville when we did your interview, because I was supposed to be doing something else. I was in town for something else that fell through, and I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? I've got like 2 days to waste. So I was like, okay, I'll do some more interviews. And so I sent a second email out to a small group of people. I was like, hey, I've got this many interview slots. I'm sitting in a hotel room, like, strike while the iron's hot. And I think you were one of those when I was in Jacksonville. But what was it about what we said about the Dominion program publicly through the podcast on our email list to where you're like, okay, that's something I at least need to apply for and look into a little bit further?
I think one thing that really caught my attention. So I again, another season of life where I've been seeking for mentorship that's biblically rooted, that can help me grow in areas of a husband, a father, and a businessman, an entrepreneur. So I'm looking for that right now. And then you start coming out with the Dominion marketing and stuff like that. But you use specific language like guys who are killers, guys who are elite, guys who are like ruthlessly trying to grow. And that's what really triggered in me an interest to at least explore it more and talk to you and figure out what this is all about. Because I've just noticed in life when you're surrounded by guys like that, and guys who are, again, it's another one of those in line with tell you how it is things. Like you're not trying to tell people what they want to hear. You're trying to tell people what they need to hear. And when you're surrounded by guys like that who are seeking that out, and guys like maybe who have been there, done that, and who are feeding into others, you can't help but grow and grow near to the Lord, which is ultimately what I was looking for.
When I remember at the beginning when I started talking about like, hey, I'm looking for killers. Like some people are kind of uncomfortable with that language because obviously I'm not talking about people that murder other humans, but it's that killer instinct, that killer mindset to where guys want to be elite. They don't just want to be a dad. They want to be an elite level dad. They don't want to be a husband. They want to be an elite level husband. They don't want to be just a member of their church. They want to serve the local body of believers in an elite way. And so when I use that language, like I'm looking for killers understand what I'm saying. Right. So if someone were to say that to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's kind of my mentality. Like it's not kill or be killed. It's just having that killer mindset. But I guess for you, it's always, I don't know if I've asked you this, but we've evolved the program a little bit to include a couple of different tracks, and you went with the track that gets a lot of one-on-one access with me. And so every month we're doing one-on-one interactions, and also you're coming out to Oklahoma here soon to spend some time with me, kind of in my world. You're getting tattooed by my tattoo artist, just text messages throughout the month and like connecting on very specific things to your life, to your business. And so for you, like what made you make the jump? Like what made you because it is a significant investment of time and effort and capital. Because the thing is if it's cheap or free on time or effort or capital, then guys just treat it that way. And that's why I'm just real public about it. It's like, yeah, this program, it's the investment just kind of is what it is. But you have guys that have plenty of capital, but they don't really have the will or desire to put it in. And it's only if you really put in the time, effort, and capital to where you really get the overall experience. But what made you jump?
Yeah, I've always been, at least in recent years, wired to either, if I'm going to get something out of something, I'm going all in. It's like jump off the deep end kind of thing. And if I'm not going all in, then, I don't treat it like I'm going all in. And so for this, two options, one more expensive than the other, one more one-on-one direct time with you than the other. And for me personally, it was either I'm going all in or I'm not going to do it. And I get a ton out of the the package that isn't the elite package or isn't a lot of one-on-one time with you package. I get a lot out of that for sure. But what I was seeking wasn't necessarily another small group or anything. And not that is, it's more than a small group, but I was seeking direct one-on-one time with someone who can pour into me and directly head on answer or at least provide insight into the things that I'm dealing with in my own life, into the challenges, into the risks that I want to take and the decisions that I feel like I need to make. I need that head on one-on-one time. And I find that's really hard to find. It's really hard to find someone you want to listen to who's rooted in scripture, who I can look at their family life and be like, yeah, I would get behind that guy. Like I want my family to look like his family one day, more or less. And then someone who is also trying to build something and create something and willing to take risks and willing to make sacrifices and be in uncomfortable positions to just follow where God's calling them to go. And so I'm in that right now. I'm trying to take risks and go where God's calling me to go. But here and there, I'll get advice and some wisdom, but I haven't had direct one-on-one, very intentional, deep time. And that's what I thought I was going to get out of Elite, and that's what I've gotten out of Elite.
Well, and I appreciate you going into the detail, because what I've learned over time, especially because I have a public profile, like I'm not, I guess there are people all over the world that listen to the show, and it's really, really grown over the years, and we've seen tremendous blessings come out of it. People want, they want proximity to me, and that was the thing that we couldn't figure out for years. For years, people and advisors and just friends of mine would be like, man, like, we got to get you in front of more people. Like, we need your philosophies, like, actually being lived out in individual lives and not just people listening to the show, which is tremendously valuable. But like, how do we do that? And that goes back to why we designed the Dominion program the way that we did, to where it's like, okay, equipping men to push back darkness, cultivating spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. Now, what does that look like when I'm doing that one-on-one with somebody? What does that look like when I'm doing that one-on small group of killers, right? What does that look like? Because that's how a program like this becomes, and I don't want to be hyperbolic, but more of a movement as opposed to just a program, because it's like, okay, if we have individual guys in their individual businesses, individual church congregations, individual homes, neighborhoods, whatever, pushing back darkness, equipping themselves to push back darkness, equipping others, cultivating spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. Like that's how you turn the ship, right? That's how you change society. That's how you change culture. That's how you do those different things. And obviously we partner with some very specific ministries and churches and things like that for the stuff that we don't specifically do. We kind of help get that out there. But for you, I'm curious, because your and I's time during this initial part of the program is going to be winding to a close before too long. What have been some of the things that you've seen that have been a benefit to you, a benefit to your family? Because, you had your first kid during this process, so I kind of got to see you, and, you look like you've been getting sleep, which is shocking at this point, because I think, what are they, 2 months old or something like that, 3 months old? Mm-hmm. And so, like, what have been some of those aha moments with either me or the group to where you're just like, okay, these are the nuggets that I've taken that have helped me as I'm trying to operate?
Yeah, there's been a lot of those. And yet, I got to say, the reason I look like I'm getting sleep because my wife's a beast and she does a majority of the work. So she's
shout out to Mrs. Renda.
Yeah. A lot of those in our one-on-one times, and a lot of those in the group times with the guys, going through the content that you've provided for us. I'd say I can give like for me in building the business that we're trying to build, that was a huge focus for me in seeking out in entering Dominion. And seeking what I was looking for was to provide some clarity and wisdom in this path that I was on in business. And so in this, over the course of the last 5 months or so, I think decision-making and discernment, and I can go deeper into this, but I'll stay a little higher level, I guess. Decision-making and discernment. One of the meetings we had was specifically on that. Opportunities arise. How do we assess the opportunity, pray, guess, go kind of thing? What's the process and how we make a decision to go or to not go, or turn right or turn left? That was a huge aha moment for me. I think especially when you used, I don't know if it was it Frank Thomas? You used a analogy from, I think, Baseball Tonight on MLB Network or something, I don't know who it was. Frank Thomas, I think.
It was Pete Rose. So they did a segment. Let me go ahead and tell the audience if they don't know what I'm talking about. 1 second, got something I need to. All right, wait. All right, we had a little setting mishap here. Got it fixed. Okay, so this is one of those moments where they need to give the cameraman a raise, and so we have Pete Rose on set at wherever they're at for MLB Network, and on set with him, I believe, is Frank Thomas and Alex Rodriguez. And they just start chit-chatting about hitting. And so on the set, they've got a plate, a batter's box, and things like that. And the cameraman just keeps rolling, right? And I don't know if they showed this later or something like that, but they just kept the production thing rolling. And so Pete's talking to them, and here you have Frank Thomas and Alex Rodriguez. Alex Rodriguez, had he not juiced, would have been a surefire Hall of Famer. Frank Thomas was a surefire Hall of Famer, I think, first ballot. And then you've got, obviously Pete Rose, who's now passed, but not a very good guy. Bet on baseball, bet on teams, games that he was playing in and all kinds of things, right? But probably the best pure hitter of all time, right? Just sweet swing, pure hitter, great guy in terms of baseball. And so they're just leaning in to Pete Rose talking. They're just like basically drooling and salivating. Two of the best hitters ever are just drooling and salivating. And they're like, your swing is what gets you to the show, right? Because when you're drafted, guys, again, you go to rookie ball and then low A and then high A, then double A, then triple A, then the majors. And then even if you get to the majors, you could be sent right back down and never come up. So these guys that are just 10 plus year guys in the major leagues, like they're special elite athletes, right? And so he's like, when I would slump, I wouldn't change a thing on my swing, and our batting coach would never want to change my swing. And that's what we see today in modern baseball. If something's going wrong with your swing, they start changing it. They start jacking with your mechanics, right? There's a young stud on the St. Louis Cardinals, which is my team. He comes up, he gets all the way to the majors with his swing. Things don't go well the first month or so. They start changing the mechanics of this dude's swing. Pete Rose says, I would never in a million years do that. You know what I would do? I would just move where I stood in the box. Mm-hmm. So if I was getting beat by the slider a lot or whatever, I was chasing the curveball, I would move up in the box, right? So I could get on the pitch, better. If I was getting beat by the fastball or whatever, I'd move back in the box. My swing stayed the same. And Frank Thomas and Alex Rodriguez were just like, their minds were blown. They're like, oh my gosh, of course. It's your swing that got you there. And so that was the story that I told you in one of our one-on-one calls just to bring the audience up to speed.
And that was huge for me because I was going through a mini season of business where there's big decision looming, and I didn't know, do we move forward? Do we not move forward? I had told you about call it a spiritual strategy I had used in the past to make decisions, and that a lot of freedom in that. I felt like that was how God had wired me to operate. I deviated from that and felt off and I didn't feel peace. And you said, and I have it highlighted here, I have it starred and underlined, your swing is what got you here. But you also said, the move up or move back in the box analogy. So maybe this could look at a lot of different ways. Maybe it's you got to spend more time with the Lord. Maybe you got to sit quiet and just listen to him more than you have been lately. And you still apply the same strategy, but in order to get the clarity, in order to feel the conviction that you need to move forward, you might just have to tilt one way or the other, but don't change the whole strategy and the whole swing. So that was a huge one. And then I'll say one more that it's not the advice you'd get from the world today, but you gave it to me. And I think there's a ton of truth in it. As we were talking about leadership and culture building, this was recent. And that's where we're in a season right now where we're trying to build culture, and I want to do it in a way that glorifies God and that reflects Christ. And you said building a culture and all the time people spend on it is a complete waste of time. And there's other things, unless it's toxic. You said, unless it's toxic, complete waste of time. And what I got out of that was operational excellence, and also individually focusing on certain people on your team is immensely more important than this cloud of culture that you're trying to bring over your business or your team. And so I've already figuring out a lot of ways to apply that, but that's another huge thing. I know a lot of these are business related, but that's just the season I'm in right now. A lot of it is business, and there's fatherhood stuff in there too, because obviously I just had a kid.
Hey guys, real quick. As you've heard me describe before, I am incredibly conservative about the supplements that I take. I spent years being terrified of putting different products in my body because I didn't know what they were made with, or if it was going to be kind of fly-by-night companies using all kinds of crazy ingredients. So I've always wanted to partner with an American company that only uses the highest quality ingredients, and that's why I want to remind you that we are partnered with Jocko Fuel. Jocko Fuel is Jocko Willing's supplement company that is based here in the United States. So what are some of my favorite products that they make? So they make whey protein powder, and guys, they just released a cookies and cream flavor not that long ago, and it is ridiculously good. Make sure you use it with milk. It makes it even better. They also make clean energy drinks. I finally decided what my favorite was, and that's pink lemonade. That is my favorite of all their flavors. But they also have the best tasting greens powder on the market. I prefer the peach flavor myself. They also make pre-workout and ready-to-drink protein. So I actually mix the ready-to-drink protein in my boys' milk, and they love it. They're constantly like, Dad, banana milk. So we got to hook that up in the Thompson household. But I also use their krill oil, fish oil, creatine, vitamin D, and their sleep aids. And guys, they've got new stuff coming out all the time at a bunch of stuff I didn't even have time to mention. Guys, if you take your health and wellness seriously, then you simply can't afford to put cheap and inconsistent supplements inside of your body. Try Origin out today by going to www.jockofuel.com. That's jockofuel.com. Use the promo code Undaunted to get 10% off your order. Again, that's jockofuel.com, promo code Undaunted to get 10% off your order. Yeah, I mean, I remember that on our last call because people just, business owners, they chase culture, but culture is really vague. And you spend all this time and money, and then you have a lot of people in your organization. Again, if you follow the Pareto principle or distribution, it's like your top 20% of employees are going to do the 80% of the work that needs to keep the thing rolling or keep the revenue coming in. And so you're spending all this time and effort and on culture building for people that would literally go to the office across, the parking lot and go work for them, your direct competitor, for $1 more per hour, right? And so, yes, focus on your key employees, make sure that their needs and their desires are met, not just from a financial, standpoint, but also the type of job that they're doing. It's not just being on the right bus, it's being on the right seat on the right bus, like all that kind of stuff. And then one thing you were talking about earlier is it goes back to our pillars. So that's the core of the Dominion program, are the 6 pillars of a Dominion man, the 6 pillars of a Dominion man. And one of those pillars is direction over vision. Direction over vision. So vision's fine. Vision's good, but you will have people that will get a vision and it'll shoot them off in a completely different direction. And it's not good for them overall. And it's also not what God would have for them, but they get this vision and it feels good. And it's an exciting thing. And it's just like, but are you in the corridor of the direction that God has for your life? Yes or no? And so, yeah, I will say, Mitch, a lot of our conversations, they've been very, stimulating for me because they really talk more in a business context. And I like talking to business owners about their businesses and in the areas. Like, I'm not going to look at your spreadsheets and be like, well, your EBITDA is not really looking too healthy. So how about we burp and do all that? But I have people at my disposal that could really, really help there. But for you personally, as a man, as a husband, as a new father, let's talk about some of those things in terms of what value you've gotten out of a program like this, not only from our one-on-one interactions, but also the group component.
Yeah, a huge one, and it was just our last month of the pillar standards over goals. That was a huge, because so the pillars are caught a little more high level, and then we go deeper on our calls. You walk us through that, and then it's on us to go even deeper, beyond, even deeper than what we talk about on our calls. And so I sat with that one for a while, and the way I processed that pillar was really long term over short term. A lot of us live in this short term, perpetually short term world, whereas that's not biblical, really. It's not biblical at all. We're eternally focused in Scripture. And so I dug further and deeper into that, because that's what the pillars do. They kind of force you to dig deeper, and came across one of God's first original commands of man, which is to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue, and have dominion. And this resonated because my mind is set on standards over goals. As I'm reading Scripture and I'm digging into things, I'm thinking standards over goals, especially in as a new father, and what I want my kid's life to look like over the next 18 years until he leaves the house. And in business, just the same, how we want our business to look over the years. You get so focused on what needs to be, how can I get my business that in reality might take 10 years? How can I experience that in a year? We get so consumed with the timeline. So long story short, I'm sitting with that Scripture, and there's a having at the end. This is kind of what I mean. We get so concerned with the having. When can I have dominion? When can I have the thing that I'm chasing? And that's elementary level. And then you get to the college degree where you're well, I got to do a lot of stuff in order to have. So I'm going to start doing a lot of stuff in order to have. But then you get to I feel the ultimate level where you're no, it starts with the being. And this is where I line it with standards, and the standards we talked about, and what standards really are. And it's so much more about being who God's called you to be right now, because you can be. You don't have to have the thing that God's promised in order to be who God's called you to be. So be who God's called you to be right now. What does that look like? Be that. That will flow into the doing, and then the doing will flow into the having. So that was like, that's just super recent. That was just, within the last couple of weeks, which has helped me really slow down and be more, peaceful in my moving, and in business and as a father. And it helps you be more present for sure. And you're not always chasing a timeline. You're not putting a timeline on anything. Let God put the timeline on things. Yep. You don't put the timeline. Goal setting is not biblical. We talked about this. It's not biblical. I don't see it in the Bible. So that's a big one for me.
Yeah, again, standards over goals, that's another one of the pillars. Like, that's the one that really trips people up, because we've been bred, especially if you went to college, everything's about goal setting, and, read How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then set some goals, and then read 12-week year and set some goals. But people don't suck because they suck at goal setting. People suck because they suck. And so if it wasn't like if we could just get 5% better at goal setting, we wouldn't suck so bad. No, it's because people don't live with any type of a standard. And so I don't want to really give away too much more of that. But as we wrap up here, Mitch, I really appreciate you taking the time to give us all this input. But obviously, there are a lot of guys that have put in applications already. There are guys that are kind of on the fence about putting on an application. Again, guys, Undaunted.Life/Dominion, Undaunted.Life/Dominion. It's in the show notes, or you can just go to our website. It's right there on the top right. There are dudes that are on the fence about applying because they don't know what that means. Like, what does that require of me? Well, probably nothing. Like you're going to get contacted by our team. We have a team now that's kind of handling that. And then, if you're a good fit for the program, yeah, you'll end up doing an interview with me, and we'll make sure it's a good fit. But there are people that are maybe a good fit for the program and they want to be in it, but there's something that's like they're just straddling the fence for whatever reason. Maybe they're worried about the time commitment. Maybe they're worried about that investment. And again, we require significant investment of time, talent, effort, resources, all the things to be a part of this program. What would be your message to those people on the fence?
I can say what I did. I asked God first and foremost. And how God answered that was through, I think it's Proverbs 4:7. Get wisdom, though it costs you all you have. Get wisdom. Value wisdom over money. Value wisdom over all the things. And the one who provides the wisdom deserves to be paid, rightfully so. So that was a lot of other instances happened that resulted in me making a decision. But I would say that ask God, see what He has to say, and then like, are you actually ruthlessly trying to grow? Like, are you, the way you would call it, a killer? Or like, do you really badly want to be a killer? Like, I don't know if I'm a killer, but I would love to be considered one, not the way that the world defines that, but I would love to be considered one. And I would love I would love my marriage to look like that, my parenting to look like that, my business to look like that, my walk with God to look like that. And I have told you from the very beginning, throw me in the deep end, because that's what I need. Uncomfortable things, hard things, to be told hard things that maybe I don't want to hear. And if you're like willing to receive all of that, then do it. If you feel like there's not a hard no from God on that, and you're willing to get thrown into the deep end with a desire to grow in whatever area of life it is, do it. Just do it. Yeah. Like, I don't know,
Yeah. Mitch, I love that, because I remember you telling me that from the beginning on our first call, like, hey, throw me in the deep end. Because some programs like this, it's some dude with an outsized ego, with not a whole lot of wisdom, just screaming at people, do this and do it faster. And if it doesn't work, do it harder next time, or blah, blah. And it's like, okay, like maybe some people need some of that. But a lot of my calls with people that are one-on-one, it's a lot of questions, because I may have an idea of exactly what you need to do, but I want to ask questions that maybe get you there to where you're like, okay, I think I figured out what I need to do, as opposed to me just being like, yeah, just do this, 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 and this, and it'll all be better. Right? Because again, we want to churn out killers. We want to churn out people that are making unbelievable improvements in all those very, very important areas, right? Some of it's going to be business based on season. Some of it's going to be their kids based on season, or their wife. But again, when the lawyer asked Jesus, what's the most important law? I said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. So if God's not in that primary seat, we're going to have issues. Now, when you talk about our neighbor, who's your primary neighbor? Mrs. Renda, right? So if that's not in the right order, things are not going to go well. So who's your secondary neighbor? Now you have a secondary neighbor, and that's your kiddo, right? And hopefully a whole lot more coming through. That's got to be in the right ordering. Behind mom, behind God, or things are going to be out of place. Then we start getting into business, and we start getting into, brother, business owners, like all those types of people that kind of help, make the scaffolding for your life. And so all that's very, very important. But Mitch, I know you got things to do and places to be. So I just really appreciate you coming on and talking to our audience today, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.